Good morning, everybody. We're here with Nicholas Chamberas, public affairs strategist, New York. Nick, good morning.
Good morning, Yuri. Great to be back.
Yeah, we met a couple of times before, and we'll meet more often in the future. Uh, we have to touch upon certain things that my viewers are very interested in hearing about, and that's first and foremost the allies of Donald Trump, people like Kerry Lake and such. What would you predict as their future in the Trump administration?
Well, I think Carrie Lake will win her Senate race. I hope Carrie Lake will win her Senate race. Um, I think she's one of the most dynamic Trump surrogates in the country. And it just goes to show you how important the state of Arizona is and the mess we saw last year. Carrie Lake should be governor right now. In all fairness, she shouldn't be running for senator. She should be Governor Carrie Lake. What happened in that election was a travesty, and we don't need to talk about rigging or whatever fixed elections. Um, the machines were constantly breaking, almost like a developing country. Lines and all coincidentally, most of this happened on election day, when most of Carrie Lake's voters were coming out. So I think Team Trump. You need a huge showing for Carrie Lake out in Arizona, and you need to fix the problems. There's a new chairman uh, of the state GOP in Arizona, and Arizona I think is a must win. We can't give it up. So, but more than that, I think Carrie Lake speaks to so many different constituencies. She obviously unites and energizes the traditional conservative, social conservative Republican base, but she's also a mom, and I think she also brings a lot of support from suburban women. And I think that's going to be the key, right? We saw in the 90s, I remember, what was the term, soccer moms?
Yeah.
Were many elections. Well, suburban women in general, once again, are coming to the forefront of this election. They're going to be a key voting constituency. And I think someone like Carrie Lake uh, will be instrumental in bringing them to Team Trump. I think probably um, someone who does not get nearly enough credit in terms of being an absolutely outstanding surrogate for Donald Trump is Melania Trump. And I expect that she's going to take a more prominent role, a more active role on the campaign trail than ever before. I'd like to remind your viewers and listeners in 2016, the weekend before the election, she did a couple of campaign stops in the Philadelphia suburbs. And it's amazing how much better Trump did in those areas than previous Republican candidates before him. And I think she might have been, I think she was a key to victory, but I think she played a particularly instrumental role in tipping Pennsylvania over into Trump's favor. Obviously, Donald Trump is a different kind of Republican. I think any Republican besides Donald Trump then or now would have had much more difficulty winning Pennsylvania. Trump's attributes are a natural fit for Pennsylvania voters to obviously keep Republicans, but attract a lot more independents and even Democrats who would normally not vote for a Republican, probably since Reagan. And I just think that there's a new term that there are Trump Democrats. There are also Trump voters. There are voters, and obviously the Republican Party would do well to look into how to bring them permanently into the Republican camp, or get them out to vote because they're more likely to vote for Republicans. There are voters who will not vote unless Donald Trump is on the ballot, who do not necessarily know or care about any other candidate. They become so discouraged from the system that you'll talk to them and say, I'm a Trump voter. What party do you support? Trump. They will not come out to vote unless Donald Trump is on the ballot. So I think, the Democrats, they they have several tricks in the playbook to try to keep those folks home. I think Team Trump is ready to bring them out in record numbers this time. The best surrogates. Family is always great for candidates. You always want to see a candidate with their family. It makes for pleasant copy, pleasant images. But the Trump family in particular, with Laura Trump, for example, and Eric, Don Jr., they're so diverse in what they bring to the table. It's amazing. They are very, very powerful communicators on behalf of the president. And again, they have different personalities, they have different styles, which brings the message forth effectively. And for example, Laura Trump is very reassuring. If you're listening to a Laura Trump interview, she's not scaring suburban moms. She's not scaring working women. She's not scaring male professionals, male college-educated professionals. So, but then if you listen to Don Jr., he can be very, very acerbic, and when people go after his father, he is very effective at defending.
There's no stopping him and protecting and defending his dad.
So it's done cogently. It's not, sometimes when family is involved, people get too emotional. They're very effective at staying on, defending their father.
No question about it. Yeah.
So there's so many, the aspiring presidential hopefuls are terrific surrogates. There's just from New York, I'm a proud New Yorker. It's great to see Elise Stefanik out on the campaign trail. Lee Zeldin has been phenomenal as well. We could go down the list. Vivek Ramaswamy is ready for a debate, I think 24/7. I saw him on Megyn Kelly yesterday, and it's just I think surrogates will play a key this year. We have we have a very disciplined Trump campaign team. They're very focused on being behind the scenes. Susan Wiles, Chris LaCivita, so many people on that team that just don't want their names out there. And this is a different campaign, and I think the Biden team is hoping beyond hope, maybe desperation, that Donald Trump just gets angry and says something controversial. Yeah, look, President Trump is at some point in the campaign going to say something angry and controversial.
Listen, sticks and stones. So what can I say? Sticks and stones. Everybody was marveling how he's going to fix it with Nikki Haley now after all those insults that were thrown both ways. And I said, wait till the end of this week. The man is transactional. You do harm to him, he counterattacks. You do good by him, he braces you back. You withdraw, you save the money for the party, you save the money for the American businesses, etc., lower the intramural, heat between the members of the same party fighting for the nomination in the primaries. So he'll make peace with Nikki Haley. I don't know if you think she may get anything in the administration eventually.
I hope not. I'm not going to mince words. I think Nikki Haley is a month too late in presenting basically an acceptable explanation of why she ran and why she stayed in the race. Nikki Haley, I'm much more concerned, and I'm not that concerned. I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm far more concerned about Ron DeSantis supporters coming back into the fold than I am about Nikki Haley supporters. And let me just, if we have some time, I want to expand on that a little bit. So I strongly disagreed with Governor DeSantis as entering this race. Not only from a political strategy perspective, but my personality is such in 2018, Donald Trump saved this man's candidacy. He came out of nowhere and not only won the primary, but won the governor's seat. He's been a phenomenal governor. I mean, outstanding, superlative. There are not enough great words to describe Governor DeSantis' performance. However, there's something to be said for loyalty. I cannot understand why he would have run at this time. I don't care how bad it looked for Donald Trump. There's no stronger candidate. I said that for years now. There's no stronger candidate that we can present against the Democrats. It's Donald Trump. He's our best chance to win. So I don't understand why he jumped into the race, but at the same time, he has a lot of passionate supporters, a lot of supporters who come from key Republican constituencies, and they're dedicated supporters, and they're also very talented supporters, and they're true believers. I'm not taking anything away from Nikki Haley personally, but Nikki Haley, the way her campaign was run, the message she focused on, I mean, I don't know how long it took her to mention Laken Riley, the young woman who was brutally murdered a couple of weeks ago in Georgia. My tongue gets tied. I don't want to talk about that right now. But Nikki Haley represents a long gone past for the Republican Party. We are not, and I don't know if we ever were, but they sure seem to have a disproportionate impact on our policy decisions and what we decided to focus on as a party. We are no longer the party of the Chamber of Commerce. We are no longer Paul Ryan's Republican Party. And I think we need to be realistic. It would be great to have Nikki Haley's support for Team Trump. The more the merrier. We need to unite. We cannot leave even a single vote behind. But it depends on what cost. Because again, Nikki Haley, most of her supporters were never Trumpers, people who would be hard-pressed to ever support Donald Trump. A lot of them were Democrats, and not the Trump Democrats that I described before, but a lot of them were Democrats who hated Trump, who hate Trump, will never vote for Trump. And you saw in New Hampshire, there's several interviews, you saw from the exit polling, these are people who were trying to hurt Donald Trump, to boost up Nikki Haley artificially.
They're organized never-Trumpers.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, I hope Nikki Haley endorses President Trump soon, but let's not delude ourselves into thinking that this really adds anything substantially for Donald Trump. It doesn't. Again, we have to be very careful. This is a different time. This is a different election. We have to be very careful about the message we send forth. And if people think that, we're going to be the same old party that just has the platitudes about tax rates, although it's very important to cut taxes, very important, but we can't just keep talking about taxes as the singular and only issue in this country. And a lot of the Nikki Haley backers, they dream of basically a lot of Nikki Haley's institutional backers were supporting that ridiculous so-called Senate bipartisan compromise on illegal.
Yeah.
No, those days are gone, folks. If the Republican Party were to insist on a platform of the past, which focused on one issue and wink, wink, nod, nod about open borders, we would go the way of the Whigs. The Republican Party, and President Trump, to his credit, was the first one to pick up on it and seize on it. We must attract working class voters into the Republican Party, or we will go the way of the Whigs. We will be extinct. So if you notice, it's interesting because people like Ron DeSantis and even Ted Cruz, who I think the world of, have evolved. When Governor DeSantis was in Congress, he didn't necessarily recognize the threat from China. Initially, same thing from Ted Cruz, and he's been one of the most outspoken leaders on this issue. But basically, Donald Trump has brought courage to other people. It's infectious to say, hey, folks, yeah, if a factory closes They've gotten hundreds of millions of dollars in tax incentives, and all of a sudden they're shipping 2,000 jobs overseas. No, that's not a good thing. We're not going to celebrate it. We're not going to say it's part of like free market, open market. This is foolishness. And Donald Trump was the first one to convincingly say this and do it forcefully. And people believe that he means what he says. So Nikki Haley, she just, I think she drank the donor's Kool-Aid and did not tap into the more pressing problems, and that's why I don't think she has a built-in constituency. Governor DeSantis, conversely, his issue was he was almost like a Trump light. There wasn't
Yeah.
much. You know, he was just trying to say, "Oh, well, what Trump did, I did better, and I can do better." Obviously, the voters didn't buy it. I don't buy it. But to Governor DeSantis' credit, who again is a phenomenal governor,
No question about it.
look at what he did with Disney it's a case study. It's fantastic, but that's the difference between Governor DeSantis has a natural base of support. Nikki Haley, I venture to say, no matter what happens, 70% of her supporters will not vote for Donald Trump, no matter what. So, I think the best thing that Governor Haley can do is tone down the rhetoric immediately against the former president. There's something. You will always have disagreements with people in politics, even people who you revere, even people who've done amazing things for you. But there's something to be said about loyalty. President Trump entrusted her with a key position in administration as UN ambassador. I think she should tone down the rhetoric. I think she should find a way to patch things up with Trump supporters and President Trump himself, and decide, does she want to be part of the American team that brings our country back? Because let's get serious here. There's no American comeback. Obviously, people are going to say, well, you're not a disinterested party. No, I'm not a disinterested party. People know where I stand. But again, I'll have this debate with anyone who likes. America is not coming back with another 4 years of Joe Biden. God
No.
only knows what will happen to this country with another 4 years. And maybe I sound like Bill, like I'm parroting Bill Clinton in the 90s. We cannot afford another 4 years of Joe Biden. So Nikki Haley can get with the program and work very hard to make sure that that Joe Biden does not get another 4 years, that any Democrat does not see another 4 years in the White House the next term, or she can basically try to help Biden or the Democrats, and she can help RFK. And I think RFK, I don't want to question his personal motivations, but anyone out there thinking of supporting RFK, a vote for RFK is a vote for Joe Biden or whoever runs in his place for the Democrats. So, folks, please understand, a vote for RFK is a vote for another 4 years. If you want another 4 years, vote for RFK. If you want change, vote for Donald Trump. If you want change to go back to prosperity, vote for Donald Trump.
Nick, what do you think? Will the matter of abortion, one of our viewers, whom I know personally, she asked me a question, what about abortion? I asked her, what about it? But I think what she meant, and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, will the abortion matters be the stumbling block for the Republican candidates on every level this election? Because people will ask you, where do you stand on abortion? Like a 70-year-old man would ask you, the candidate in the meeting, something like that. But there are some answers to that. But I want to hear what you think about the future of this matter, which is, to me, has been put to rest by the decision of the Supreme Court regarding Roe v. Wade. And every state can decide for itself. If we don't like the decision of the state, like we don't like the decision of our state of New York, who's aiming to become the abortion capital of the country. So we got to move out, or we got to move out the governor and replace the governor whose views are more in line with what the reasonable population things. To talk about abortion in a country where the population is declining year by year by a variety of reasons, and we put abortion on top of it as a propagated artificially matter that is advertised by the government, advertised with the full force of all the mainstream media. I think it's inappropriate.
Um, I I want to remind the viewers and the listeners that in New York State, a baby can be aborted up until birth. That is the law of New York State. There's nothing the federal government can do about it. There's actually a very sobering hearing, question and answer session with one of the state senator sponsors of this bill that became a law. And yes, essentially the baby can be in the process of labor and be aborted. That's a law.
And if you're lucky to be born, they'll mutilate you later with the transgenderism, etc.
So I think this is a states' rights issue, and each state has populations with differing views on abortion. Um, I don't think that abortion will play a role in the presidential race. Of course, they're going to try to make abortion an issue. I think they've misread things. The Democrats, and I hope they run about abortion, because I think what happened is there were certain state referenda last time where abortion was on the ballot, and you have to understand in certain instances, the heavy pro-abortion forces were able to outspend pro-lifers about 10-1. The messaging, so to speak, was not the best. I don't want to get into specifically what people argue about, but if you're going to try to frame this election, if I would hope that the Biden campaign tries to run an abortion in this race. Kathy Hochul tried it actually in 2022. It's so funny. Um, the city and state is burning, basically. Crime is through the roof, and the economy is the worst in the country, possibly. People are suffering. We had the lockdowns, and she had some advisors, and all they would talk about is abortion. She went from 15, up 10, up 8 to toss up. So I think it's a states' rights issue. I think the key also is, and I think Donald Trump and his campaign team understand this, they have to be careful not to alienate pro-lifers either, because that's one constituency who will stay home. And President Bush realized that in 2000, where even though he had enormous support from evangelicals, he sort of, it was very concerning. His position on abortion was very concerning. In 2004, he ran as a much stronger pro-life candidate. I certainly am not advising President Trump to highlight abortion, but anytime Democrats talk about abortion in this race, we need to bring up partial birth abortion. On a national level, there's passionate views on this issue on both sides, and the problem is that, yes, Democrats are going to point out, oh, this is the troglodyte party that's going to ban abortion. Abortion is not going to be banned in any state in the country. There are going to be restrictions, but again, each state has differing views on the restrictions, right? Again, partial birth abortion in New York is legal and encouraged. Obviously, this law would never, ever stand in a place like Alabama. Or even Texas, which has stronger restrictions on abortion. So I don't think people are staying up at night worrying about what's going to happen to abortion. With everything going on, if Democrats really think that voters are going to make their decision about who the next president of the United States is based on whether abortion on demand is going to be cemented throughout the United States, I encourage them to send that message. I hope they spend billions of dollars on advertisements for it. Yes, please, just keep talking about abortion, Democrats. Please.
Yeah, there are so many matters like the abortion debate, or Hamas, or people who are not allowed to be called illegals. They're migrants. They're looking for better life, etc., etc. It's all prepackaged, and people listen to it for 5 seconds, and they say, "Yeah, yeah, you're right. This is," and they vote for, the Democrat point of view on those at least three matters like this, or guns or Second Amendment, also such a matter. But if you talk to a person long enough, it doesn't take forever. It takes about 30, 40 seconds. In my case, when you present the facts and she, would you agree that that is a possible outcome? Then if that, like an example, if the government is supportive of abortion up to the pregnancy, up to the 9 months of pregnancy, or whatever it takes to bring the child into this world, that there will be doctors who will be, for love of money, performing this just to make money. Remember Kermit Gosnell. Remember this barbarian. I don't know, this animal. I don't know how to call him without insulting, good people, as Donald Trump would say. Some of them at least. But really, the man was storing the tissue of unborn children in trash bags in the corridors of his clinic in Philadelphia, as far as I remember.
Yeah, I think when Democrats start talking about abortion, when Democrats start talking about so-called gun control, we need to talk about Republicans need to talk about respect for life in this country. And under the Biden administration, and to be fair, I don't want to blame this solely on President Biden. I'm not doing that. But you've noticed there's less respect for life in this country, and it has nothing to do with
You
abortion.
have to blame him. Like everything that's going on in the household, you have to blame the parents. Old school. You have to. It's on their watch.
Exactly. And there's a noted lack of respect for human life and human dignity in this country, and everything has to be a sacrifice for the altar of woke politics. I don't know if you saw this, maybe you did. I saw a video last night of a boy in a bathroom, helpless, unconscious, being stomped on his head. And the video is very explicit. You see these two scumbags, these trash bags. What kind of parents? I'm sorry if I sound a little angry, but what kind of parenting? Clearly, these I don't want to call them children because they looked almost 18, but what kind of parenting where this child is unconscious and they're stomping him? So you're looking at the video, and the kids are literally having to carry him out of the bathroom. They're laying him flat. The police are not called. The boy has a seizure. He has a concussion, several serious injuries. He's hospitalized. So, you didn't see the video, right?
No.
Okay.
Is it in a house, or it's in some public space like school?
Yeah, it's on. You can see it on anywhere on Twitter. You can see it, and it's going viral, obviously. So
If you send it to me, not that I'm eager for
no,
scenes like this. I just want to see
this speaks to the problem. How many days do you think those boys were suspended?
None.
2 days. Do you think they called the police? No. The boy who had the seizure was suspended for 10 days. 10 days. He didn't throw a single punch. He didn't start the physical altercation. And this incident was covered up. So when basically as a country, the only time the Biden administration will talk about violence is when someone commits a mass shooting, we have a problem. So I think Republicans, and I think the President Trump has done a good job of talking about valuing life. What are we doing if we're not securing our schools? What are we doing if kids go to school literally fearing for their safety? And I don't mean about...
It's a major disgrace to me. In my book, it's a major disgrace that in such a highly important and controlled environment as an American school, You just cannot sell them chairs. They have to check them on safety, on the lead component in the paint, etc., etc., etc. All bureaucratized to the hilt, and still they cannot provide for security for kids
No,
and
and
teachers for that matter.
well, you've seen some brutal assaults against teachers,
Yeah.
and again, the response is anemic, and this administration doesn't want to talk about that. Um, this administration is full of talking points um, about LGBTQ plus, and that's about it when it comes to students. Um, so I think Biden is vulnerable on so many issues, and I think the mistake they're going to make is the first mistake that the Biden campaign is going to make. They're going to try to talk about how good the economy is. Uh,
He'll do it tonight. Yes.
yeah, the economy is great if you're a billionaire venture capitalist, and the economy is great if you're destitute and rely mainly on the government for services. But when we lost millions of jobs because of the idiotic but also barbaric COVID lockdown policies instituted by the Biden administration, and those jobs, basically merchants, independent business owners, um, many office workers, when those jobs are basically being replaced by hundreds of thousands of e-bike messenger and delivery jobs,
Mm.
you're going to lose that argument anytime. So real wages have gone down in this country in just 3 years, 2.4%. So wages have come down under the Biden administration.
That's some economy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where do you see a president trying to run in a prosperous economy where, under his reign in just 3 years, income has declined 2.5%? That's just silly. So again, um, all Donald Trump has to do in a debate with Joe Biden, or anybody for that matter, is ask the question to American voters: are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And we all know the answer to that question. I think basically, um, yes, the Democrats are going to rely on the Democrats are going to rely on the 2018 playbook. So what happened in 2018 is the Russia hoax, if we all remember. One of the most embarrassing periods in the history of our country, where this so-called conspiracy was a democratic creation. There was
Yeah.
never Russian collusion. We spent tens excuse me. We spent tens of millions of dollars investigating this so-called collusion, and basically we found out that it was made up.
And
But
you don't know how much money was spent to organize it all, because we have the growing numbers all the time.
it's
First,
sickening.
it was like 1 million, then 5 million, then $50 million paid to at least Christopher Steele, and now we are thinking that it all was Putin's ploy to throw it this particular Russian host to submit the materials. I wouldn't have it past the Democrat National Committee and the strategists of Hillary Clinton.
It's sickening because yes, President. It's sickening what they did to President Trump, but we often overlook President Trump. Obviously, great legal team, multi-billionaire, vast resources, but a lot of people got caught up in this who were just regular civil servants. Some of them had to mortgage their homes to hire defense attorneys. Some of them may have lost their homes. I'm not privy to their personal circumstances, but think about it. You're just someone who loves your country. You want to serve your country. You've worked hard. You get a position in the Trump administration. And this should not happen to anybody, Republican, Democrat, Independent. This should just not happen. Basically, average workers were caught up in this obvious hoax. They had no shame. I mean, people's lives were almost destroyed and upended defending obviously patently false allegations. So the Democrats ran in 2018 about the sake of democracy, saving our democracy. Seems like they're gearing up for that again. And again, I welcome them. Let them run on this nonsense. Everybody knows this time around. That's what they fail to realize. They're in their little coffee clutches, their brunches, and drink parties, whatever you want, cocktail parties. Those same people think that that's going to sell this time. It's not selling. 2018, yes, people who necessarily didn't look too deeply into this. If you don't know the facts, if you're looking at this and you're relying on the mainstream media every day, and they're basically saying that the president of the United States colluded with another foreign country to steal this election, you're going to be very upset about it. You're going to be very concerned. That's what happened in 2018. But we all found out a few months later it was a hoax. So again, let them run on this nonsense. They can't. The American people are sick and tired of hearing about Russian collusion. Nobody's buying that Trump is a dictator or an aspiring dictator. We see how so much of this was just basically framed to fit a narrative. The American people, not only do they not believe these ridiculous allegations that there's a threat to our democracy, no, but the American people know there's a threat to their financial well-being. There's a threat to their physical safety because we have released 500,000. Their estimate's 460,000. Let me correct myself. I don't have the studies in front of me, and if people know me, they see my Newsmax stuff. They know I have to provide references. There are between 460,000 to 600,000 illegal aliens in this country who have been convicted of crimes, not about having nothing to do with their immigration status. So basically, you have twice the population of Buffalo, these felons dispersed throughout our country. How do you think that makes Americans feel? So Americans are worried about their financial well-being. They're worried about their public, their safety. They're afraid to go out, whether you're in New York City, which has become ridiculous at this point, or if you're somewhere in middle America or on the West Coast. You're scared. People are dying. There was a situation, I don't know if you saw this, and the alleged perpetrator's name escapes me. There's a guy in this country who somehow was hired by UPS. He was a seasonal UPS employee, if my understanding is correct, right?
Yeah.
Illegal alien. An illegal alien is a real term. It's a legal term. You can look it up. I'm sorry if people don't like the term, believe that no person is illegal. I'm not calling anyone illegal. There are such things as illegal aliens. This person was an illegal alien. Somehow he got a job for UPS. Not only did he get a job for UPS, but he was arrested 5 times. He was arrested. One of the felonies was for some vicious public assault of someone. Another time, he stole a Glock handgun. Again, we're not talking about AOC's fake people who steal bread because they can't afford it. We're talking about vicious criminals. So, at the end of January, he no longer worked for UPS, from what I understand. So at the end of January, this guy puts on a delivery uniform. I'm not saying it was UPS, but it looked like a delivery uniform. This entire sickening incident was caught on video surveillance. He enters a home. There are 3 adults and 2 kids. One child is 3, the other is 2. In front of these 2 children, he executes a man, a woman, her son, and his wife in front of these little kids. This is not in New York. This is not in San Francisco. This could be anywhere. We saw a young woman raped, a 14-year-old girl raped just the other day. So people are looking at this, right? They're noticing this. They're noticing other things. You're talking about the issue about who's going to appeal to suburban women, women everywhere in general. women's sports in this country is being endangered because of Biden administration policies and these vicious attacks against anyone who opposes biological males participating in women's sports. So, people are looking at the fact that they're worried about losing their job. You see mass layoffs being announced
Yeah,
every.
especially in the tech industry and in the industries that were, frankly, in the media, who was gloating, by the way, a year or a couple of years ago when the idea of the self-driving automobiles was introduced to the public court of opinion, so to speak. As people started talking about it, and the old journalists were writing gleefully that the truckers will be the first to go. Those 10 million truckers, they will be the first to go. And look at them now. The truckers are still crisscrossing the country despite the cost of fuel that is also prohibitive to the business for the business. But who's going away now? The huge BuzzFeed and stuff like that, huge journalist conglomerates where artificial intelligence writes article that they have so much struggle writing. uh, mm, so artificial intelligence does that. Soon there will be a, how they call it, not the newscasters, we call them here as, but the news readers, basically. News readers will be replaced by artificial intelligence. Already, I in my program can arrange so that Tucker Carlson would stand in Moscow and speak in Russian, saying, "I will have my interview with Vladimir Putin," etc., etc. It looks absolutely credible. 90% people cannot tell the difference. That's the reality of what's going on. And also, I would like to ask you, as soon as we touched upon the illegal matter, the matter of illegals being brought into this country, especially as we learned 4 days ago, by planes to 43 cities, 350. Nobody can come, thousands. Nobody can come up with the final figure. Is it 325,000 or 350,000, 375,000 illegals brought by four Latin American countries? They say from Cuba, El Salvador, two more. Venezuela, of course. No, nothing happens without Venezuela, of course. We need those people more in this country. And one other country also is the nearest, so to speak, abroad territories to the nearest countries. But they say they paid for the flight. And my question is, I mean, besides everything that is, there's nothing that is legal in the situation. Those people they have bypassed every legal gateway into this country. Nobody checked on them anything. They just bought the ticket. They had no visas. They had no right to entry the country, but they were brought to 43 towns, cities all over the country. And I thought about it overnight when I first heard it, and in the morning the question popped up by itself in my head. What about the Mexican cartels and international cartels that made it their main business, bringing people for pay into the United States? How come we never heard of any attempt of them to stop those flights? Because that's ruining their business. People paying, you don't have any idea. They paying. I heard of one Kyrgyz guy who paid $40,000 to get into this country. For $40,000, you can open a pretty large shop in Kyrgyzstan, and you can open a very small shop in New York. You don't need to. I mean, it's a lot of money if you know how to spend it. And people spend it on this, walking almost barefoot across the desert, and on the background of this huge business for Mexican cartels, and they didn't stop doing other things like drugs, etc., etc. But they did not shoot out of the sky not a single plane, God forbid, because it never complained to the United Nations. Those people are taking bread out of the mouths of our children on behalf of Mexican cartels. It's just either they were paid to remain silent, or it was their own operation somehow. Because you have
Uh,
to sell the tickets to those planes to people who want to get onto it. It was not for free because the American government tells us so.
Well, sadly, under the Biden administration, the Mexican cartels are doing better than ever. They're doing better than they ever imagined they could. This information about the 325,000 or something, to that effect, was a strategic leak. You're going to find out in the next few weeks that it's something more like 500,000 have been flown in. Do not be surprised if you hear this. You make a great point about coordination with the cartels. I think it's very likely that they have their hand in this. It's almost certain. I'm not 100% sure, but if you look at it logically, it makes sense. Another thing that we need to talk about is child trafficking under the Biden administration. This is a horror that the mainstream media is ignoring. And it's telling that when the movie Sound of Freedom came out, people started attacking the actors, the producers, the directors. I don't even.
Yeah,
I I, I forget most of their names. It's sad but true, right? Um, but the fact of the matter is that child trafficking has exploded in the last few years, and how demonic is it that people would just turn a blind eye to what is happening to so many kids losing their futures, um, being subjected to this? I don't care where you are on the left right spectrum, but how can you possibly ignore basically the new version of slavery that's thriving and prospering disgustingly right under our noses?
absolutely.
And all these unaccompanied minors, um, stop with the nonsense that, yeah, sure, even though DNA tests show that there's no familial link to these people, it's just a nice uncle bring. No, it's not. Um, Many children are being smuggled into this country, um, and many of them are being subjected to horrific, vile daily torture. And again, I don't for this subject. How you feel about immigration or the wall or anything does not matter. But the Biden administration has failed to get this under control, and it's something we should be talking about. Again, I, as you know, in other interviews I've done and interviews with you, no one would call me extra optimistic about campaigns. But there's so much we can run on in 2024. There's so many issues we can talk about. There's so many failures by Democrats that now is the time, not just to win elections, but to actually make people's lives better, to right the number of sick, horrible wrongs that have occurred these last few years.
Yeah. Some say that that's a common knowledge that the the pessimist is a well-informed optimist, but I believe there is also like a super ultra maga informed optimist. That's a new animal that's about to be unleashed on this country. Nicholas, thank you so very much for finding time to come to my program, and I'm proud to have you and your knowledgeable and balanced view, and of course unafraid, as Bill Bradbear uses to say every evening. Unafraid. What is he afraid of? This like man sitting on top of the mountain of conservative news. He's still afraid of something. So unafraid. Thank you very much, Nicholas, and
Thank,
welcome back anytime.
thank you.
And thank you all for listening.